Hello again, I am Jim Bob and welcome back to Railway Empire, Great Britain and Ireland Transport Revolution. We have some points to spend. Let's have a look, see what we can do. We could get the Philadelphia. That would then go one way to unlocking the Iron Duke. What else could we do? It's pretty much that really, isn't it? Let's get the Philadelphia. And then we are very close to unlocking another new UK train. And our cash has gone up really quickly, as you can see. It's just rolling in at the moment. We need to do some more line building. So we need to put in the second passenger line between Middlesbrough and Hull. So we'll get that connected there, like that. And we're also contemplating putting in a direct connection from Leeds through to Middlesbrough, and we are going to do that. So we're going to split the lines off about here, just before the influx point just here. So we're going to pull that through here and bring it in there. It's going to try and do that weird snaky thing around the mountain. We're actually going to cut through the mountain. So we bring that line like that. Got a bit of a tunnel, but that's okay. We have the cash for it this time. Don't want that massive bridge though. That is going to be a problem. A bridge that big is going to be horrifically expensive. I mean, look at the height of that thing all the way across there. It's just too big. There might actually be no way around it. We can certainly, if we have to have a bridge, we can certainly reduce the angle of it. That in itself will make it a bit smaller. If we take the line down like that, we drop this line down a touch as well. We go like that. That's not too bad. The gradients there aren't too steep. It's relatively flat, relatively straight. Not too bad of a tunnel in terms of construction costs. Yeah, we can get away with that. That's 459 for the entire line, including the tunnel and our bridge here. So let's go ahead and build that there. Here. This is just still passenger lines here. We're going to have to do the same with the freight line as well, so that we can get our meat goods from Leeds being shipped out to Middlesbrough and to Newcastle, as well as out to Hull, because all three of those are cider towns. And this is where it's going to get potentially a little bit expensive. So again, because it's a bridge, we have to have this sort of passing gap between the two. I don't want it to be too big though on this side of the bridge, otherwise it's going to be awkward trying to get that connecting up here. So we do that. There we go, and then that connects round to there. You can see, because this is actually slightly higher up on a hill, it actually makes the bridge a bit shorter, and then puts a tiny little bit of a bridge in there as the hill dips slightly. But that's okay. We need to come off here. In fact, let's think where we're going to do this. Yeah, let's do it here. So bring the line off like that. Run that over. And connect up there. Now we have the start of our freight line, so we can take that little bit out there that has no purpose anymore, Still going to keep this one in because we're going to do our supply tower trick again as we run along through here. And with the tunnel is actually a fair bit wider, so we're going to have to cut through at a different angle, kind of a bit more like that perhaps, to do the tunnel. This is where the tunnel gets quite tricky. So if we take this line to about here for now, so that's the spacer, and then bring the actual freight lines along. Like that. And so we have our spacer line in here. We'll put the supply tower in and then we can remove that middle bit there. We need to do the same over here now, so we need to get this spacer bit up and running first of all. That needs to spin around and connect there. And then this needs to connect onto that. Say about here. There we go. This is where it gets complicated and the spacing needs to be extended. So if I bring this around to sort of here, like that, I'm going to try putting in a second spacer. Curve that round a bit like that. And then I can now run this along to here. This might not be enough either, but we'll try. We'll see how we do. It's going to be awkward and finicky here, isn't it? Yep. I had a feeling it might be. We need to do the same over here. See if this is going to work. We might just have to build a completely separate tunnel. It's going to get complicated trying to take these bits of track out. Let's take that through like that, bring it around, and will it just about fit? Oh, just ever so close, but it will fit. You can see now we're out of cash. Oh no, we have a problem over here. Look at this end. Yeah, I was kind of worried about that. It does want to bend in too much, doesn't it? Maybe I can tweak that. By positioning this slightly. No, it doesn't want to do it. So the easiest thing to do is to just create a second tunnel on a slightly different angle like that. That's going to be the easier way to do it. So let's take out the extra spacer through there. Get some of our cash back. We still don't have enough. Have I got any bonds available? Yes, I do. Oh, look at that. We can take a huge bond. I don't want one that big. That'll do. I want to be able to pay it off nice and quick. Bring that around like that. And try and curve as close to the original line as I can without having a really nasty sharp kink. Try and keep it about the same height as well. Bit hokey on that corner, but it'll do. Let's take out that bit there. Take out that there as well. And there we go. So we have our double tunnel running through there for freight and for passengers. So this needs to be a direct. This is going to be another expensive line. This needs to be. Let's bring that out to about here. Do we have bridges? Yes, we do. So take that to about there. Again, this is just a spacer track, but somewhere along here, and I'm not quite sure where yet, I'm going to be having a spacer line. Oh, damn it. I'm going to be having a supply tower as well, so again, there needs to be a spacer. Take that to about there. It's parallel all the way around there. But we've got this station that we need to hook up to here as well, so we can't just build without taking that into consideration either, because the station's going to go in at a set height, and it might be a fair bit higher or lower than the actual line that we're building, so that could potentially be a problem. We do have to pay attention to that. And then the line itself comes off like that. Let's take that around to there. Create our bridge. And there. And why is that being problematic? There we go, just go straight past. And around to there. And connect. And there we go. So we have the first part of our freight lines, put in the second part. I can get that to connect. Had it a second ago, but the second we started to stretch the line, it became a problem. There we go. Bring this around. Straight over. And again, straight around. And there we go. So we have a freight line now that runs between Hull and Middlesbrough. We're going to need to put in a freight line over here. Again, we've got a bridge, so it has to be a spacer. Whether we choose to put one in normally along the line or not, we still have to definitely have one here because of the tunnel, because of the bridge. And this one could be a little bit trickier because it goes around that corner. Hopefully it won't be an issue. Yeah, I had a worry that might be the case. So now I've got to try and get it as close as I can without locking on and snapping on. So it's going to be slightly further apart just there. We need to bring the height up. Keep that gradient in check. A 2-2 gradient will do. Take that all the way across. There we go. And where do I want my supply tower? I think I'll put it on this bit here because we've got a longer stretch of track over here. So we'll stretch this one down a bit to about here. And then bring the line like that. There we go. Same on the other side. Right, actually, I'm going to run it with a gap for a bit longer. Like that. There we go. Just think it'll look neater and nicer. And there we go. So we have the freight connection now between Leeds and Hull. So it's all starting to come together quite nicely. But herein lies the issue with this style of track. Now over here between Hull and between Middlesbrough, the express lines, the passenger lines, they're on the inside. That's the shortest route, which means the passenger trains will be on the express line and the freight lines on the outside, so it's going to take longer for them on their route, just because it's a longer bit of track. Now here, theoretically, it might be okay because it's a relatively straight connection, but here between Leeds and Manchester, for example, the passenger lines here are not technically the express line, because there is no express connection. You know, the shortest route would actually end up being the freight line, which runs on the inside here, and will then connect back up over here, so we can run freight coming off that express line just there. So technically, the express line won't necessarily be an express line. The rules for an express train is that it needs to be travelling on the shortest possible journey, with the fewest number of stops and the fastest possible train. And so straight away, this line here won't be the shortest possible route from Manchester to Leeds, because the freight line will run inside it and have a shorter bit of track. It'll be slower because it'll be freight. So this is the flaw with the way that I lay my track, is that sometimes you limit potential express lines because of the way the track runs. I'm trying to think of a workaround, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do it. So I'm always thinking about evolving the way I lay my track, and for future planning runs. And sometimes, I mean, I could theoretically just manipulate the trains so that this became the express line and the freight moved over to this over here. So that becomes the longer run, and the passengers come over this way. I could do that. It was more difficult with the older system, but switching platforms or new switching lanes here that are signalled with these new stations, it's much easier to actually do that. All I need to do is just make sure that I put in waypoints to mark specific track, or trains onto specific lines when I plan the routes. So there's no reason why I couldn't do that, and then I wouldn't have the hassle and the faffing around of sorting all the switching out through here and making sure they're coming in on the right lane on this side. It will all be automatically routed out of the station by these new platforms. So it's something I could definitely think about doing. I'm content to leave it as is for now and just stick to my usual formula of freight on the far lines and then having passenger lines like this, because it makes it easier when you have a split like this. I can have passengers coming in on both of these two lines, and freight have got their own dedicated lines. There's no mixing of freight and passengers on the same route. Even if, I mean, it's not too bad here because it's right by a station connection, so there shouldn't be too much of a hold up. But yeah, it's something to think of going forward. Maybe change the way I lay my track slightly, or just change the way I route my trains. I'm going to play about with it a bit, I think, in free play and figure things out. Right, we need to get a coal station in place, and this is where it could get a bit tricky, because you can see these lines are cutting into the hill, but if I place the station here, placing it higher up than those lines, even though it's cutting into the hill slightly here, it's still placing higher than the track that it's going to be connecting to. So potentially we're going to have quite a steep gradient connecting up. It needs to be carefully thought of, carefully positioned. So I think I'm just going to go with a single track if I can get it close enough. And this is why I really want that fine control, so that I can get the station lined up at exactly the right angle. I have, made that suggestion to Calypso. We'll have to see if it ever gets acted on, but I really hope it does, because it would make things so much easier if I could position the station at exactly the right angle that I want it. That's going to be about as close as I can get it, I think. Let's try that. It's not too bad like that. We can bring that line across like this. Connect about there. Bring this line off here, and I honestly can't remember. I know I need to get, was it steel into Newcastle, wasn't it? 50 loads of steel to Newcastle, so I think, what was it I need for steel? If I remember rightly, steel needs iron and coal to then be hammered into steel, so Middlesbrough is going to be the steel making town. So I shouldn't need to then route that into here either, into Hull. So we'll leave it like that for now. We do need to put a station in Newcastle. Again, we'll go with a signalling station if we've got space for it. This is where it's going to get a bit tricky again, especially with that little bit of a hill just there. I'm going to have to angle the station like that, I think, to try and take advantage of the flatter ground just here, and also so we can get around that apple plantation just there. So I'll bring this around like that. Do the centre lines, which are traditionally my passenger lines. Both towns are going to want... The easiest thing for me to do, actually, before we do that, is to put in... excuse me, put in a double platform station by the apples, so that we can have that running off the freight, or the freight running off onto that. So we need to do a bit of track round to here, just to get the line spacing worked out. So that I get the right height. So I do, but I need that to be at the right angle there. So there we go, that's a 0% gradient, that's what I'm looking for, and that needs to be straight, which it is. There we go. So if I build that, and then take out all of that, that's my little straight bit, which I can then plot against for the passing lines, etc. Need to do the same over here. So again, need to make sure that that's straight. It looks straight. That's good. So we'll build that and immediately take all of that back out again. That's my spacer. Same again over here. Put my spacer in. Put the actual connection in. What's the problem here? Take that piece out. Let's try this again. So it'll go to there, and there we go. So that's the first of the two freight lines. That's the second freight line. That's the spacer line. And then I've got the two express lines. This is where you can start to get confused sometimes when you're laying the track down, trying to remember which line is going to be which. And the reason I've gone with a double station is because it's so close to both towns that I don't want there to be a stacking of trains both hitting the same platform at the same time. So we can use one platform as a dedicated platform for Newcastle, another one dedicated for Middlesbrough. And because, let's see, I'm looking to see where the nearest fruit is, I might actually link this one around into the back of Hull, because it's going to be quicker than sending them all the way down the line from between Newcastle and Middlesbrough all the way into Hull. Likewise, it's going to be easier than routing another line across this way and running all the way through there. So yeah, we'll link a little line that way, like that, and then technically that would potentially also give us a link between Nottingham and Hull as well, should we choose to exploit that. We probably won't. So now we've got all these lines kind of plotted in place. Let's take out what we don't need. So we don't need that. We're going to get rid of that little bit there. Get rid of that and that. Leaving the spacer line in for now. So let's do the freight line first. So the freight line goes in. There needs to be that slight bend. I need to manipulate. Actually, no, it's going to be easier if I do this with a passenger line first, I think. So let's drop that down to the passenger line, which is there. And I want that line straight. So you can see as I'm moving this, you can see that the line bends on the right hand side of my cursor with me until it hits the straight point. As long as you're far enough away, you can do this. And then you can continue to do that, and it will keep the line straight to a certain point, and then it'll kind of snap like that and no longer be straight. But it's a good way to kind of try and keep your lines as straight as possible. But again, avoid putting in too sharp a radius. So once you have it straight, just ease it back a little bit, just to shallow off your curve. Because if you put too tight corners on, then the more lines you put inside, the tighter the radius becomes, and there's a risk that you can't then create the final line that you need to put in. But also, the tighter the turn, the more speed you lose in the corner as well. So you want the lines to be fast. You know, whether they're passengers or freight, you want them always to be fast. So try and keep those corners as shallow as you can, not make them way too sharp for no reason at all. When you're joining up with signals, you know, when you've got two lines diverging, it's a little bit different. You know, so like over here, we've got, you know, a much sharper kind of, you know, angle here, but you can kind of get away with that because you're going over the points. It's at the end of the line. The trade's going to be slow through here anyway, so it's not an issue. But again, with your corners, you want to try and keep them nice and shallow so they keep the speed up. Faster your goods move, or the passengers move, the more money you make. Faster those goods get where they're supposed to be. Right, now this is going to be tricky. Can I put in enough of a little spacer? I think what I might actually do is that. Yeah, that'll do, because then I can get on a nice shallowish kind of snap away, cross over like that, connect up my freight line there, bring this over, and then we snap that in place there. Put a marker. Will it let me actually do this coming off the bend? Ah, it might not let me do this. So the marker has to go there. And let's see if we can then... Ah, it's not going to connect, look. Because of that curve. Okay. Alright, let's try something a little bit different then. Let's see, that's the freight line. Let's take that out. Let's take that out and try again. Try and get it a bit more shallow if we can. That is absolute best I can do. Can I get it any shallower? Oh, just. That might work. Let's not go too far ahead first. Let's see if we can actually do this. Again, it might just be because it's on that curve, it's not going to let me do it before the bridge, which would be a real disaster. So, okay, instead what we're going to have to do is something a little different and hope we've got enough space to actually get away with this. Yes, we have. Okay, I wasn't sure. Now we should. There we go. Yeah, now we can do that. Get across the bridge. That can follow the spacer line around and link up there. That can connect up there. And then we need to do the same over here, so we'll do the passenger line first. Because again, we've got this bridge right here. And because we've got a bridge right there, what I want to do is I want to keep that line as straight as I can. So again, I'm looking for that snap. There it is. And I'm doing that so I can put another line in here. Again, trying to avoid too sharp an angle. Now that I know where that goes, can I keep that straight? Right, so that's straight up to that point. Like that. I'm gonna build
the last
that.
years have been really savage. I don't even know whether I'm coming or going. All over the world, new railways pop up, and my advice is needed everywhere.
What task did we just complete? Oh, connect 12 cities to the network. Ah, I wonder what it was that we just completed. So now that I have this connection here, on this side, we can do that, and now we can look to bring this round at a different angle. It'd be better to do the bottom line first because of that little knob that's left over. And I want to tighten this radius up a little bit, just because it'll make it easier to space out the freight line this way. Oops. Made a mistake there. Oh no, I just took out the entire... Just took out the entire line. That might cause some real issues. Yeah, it's going to cause issues. I'm going to have to take all that line out as well now. Because even if I'd been able to reconnect, which I wouldn't have been able to do, it would have stopped me from then being able to build the supply tower, because the lines wouldn't have been stacked in sequence. It's annoying, but it is just the way it is. So we can get this connected first, like that. There we go. Now we can bring this one around. It's going to play merry hell now, isn't it? Yeah. So it's going to be a little wonky just there. Get away with it. Bring that around and connect. Okay, bit of a ball ache, but we got it done. Now we need to do the space on this side. So I want that to run to about there. And hope we can get away with this. That's what I was a little worried about. Maybe might trim that off a little bit. Yeah. Needs to come off at a different angle. Needs to come off at an angle kind of a bit like that. It's the only way, because the bridge is so close together, there's just no way to avoid those bridges, you know, creating a collision against each other, which is what was happening there. Is I don't have space to put in my passing loop just there, so that's going to have a single entrance, which is a bit frustrating, but that's not the end of the world. It just messes up the aesthetic a bit, that's all. And also means that there's a bit of a delay from here getting in and out of the station on that line. So it can't be helped, unfortunately, because of the how close the station ends here to that. But we needed to kind of position it where we did, because we needed space to bring these lines off and that line off around the back. So maybe we could have positioned it slightly better, but it's too late now. Right, now we need to connect the fruit line, the apple line. And there needs to be enough space for a train to pass. So that should do. And I need to make sure I have a diamond crossing at each end of the station. Same over here. This one I kind of want to bring off quite quickly if I can. Just so I've got... this one's going to be tricky. This one might have to have its own separate supply tower. Maybe we can get around it if... it might not let me do this, but we'll try it. We'll see if it works. If I put a line in there like that, this might work. This might not work, but we'll see. It could be kind to me. And then from there... connect like that. Split off along the top. Go in like that. Please work. Please, please work. Oh, look at that. That's awesome. That's what I was hoping for. Signal spacing means I probably want to go about there. I need to put my crossing just here. This needs to be as short as physically possible, just for space saving purposes. There we go, just about get away with that. It's going to be very tight this way, and there's just about enough room there. In fact, I'm wondering maybe if I would have been better just stacking that up against... Yeah, I'm going to stack that up. So, we're going to put another one down. And then take that first one out. I'm going to put this one here. Like that. Right up against that switch over just there. So let's take this one out. We're going to have to rebuild the track bits. But we only have to rebuild the ones that we need now. So those ones there. those ones there, and those ones there. Awesome stuff. Right, let's get these no longer needed lines out. He took out the actual proper lines then and left just the spacers. That would have been a bit of a nightmare. There we go. So we've got a signal tower, a supply tower on this side. We're going to need one on this side as well for this train. I might just, yeah, I'm just going to do a single. Oh, actually, I don't know. Maybe I could get away with one right on the edge here. No, it's a bit close to that, and we had to spread that line off a bit tighter than I wanted to. Yeah, we'll just make do with one there, and we'll just have a single independent supply tower purely for this line here instead. So I'll get that right up against the diamond, like that. The same as on the other side. That works. We need to do one over here. We'll actually do signals this time first before we put the next supply tower in. So let's start trying to make sense of. Oh wait, something's wrong. Oh, I know what's wrong. Ah, damn it. I know what I've done wrong. That is really frustrating. I want to try and fix this without ripping up everything I've done. I've still got the supply tower in place, so I can take all of this stuff out here. This is the problem. This line here went in on the wrong platform. It's supposed to go in on that platform there. That's what's caused the problem. That one little careless moment that I hadn't spotted caused all that planning that we did to have to be torn up and started again. That's frustrating, but that's the way it goes. So this is the spacer. This is the first of the freight lines, which then links up there. There we go. And then that goes there and across the top. So not major alterations needed, just slight repositioning, but had to rip up all the old lines to be able to do it, which is frustrating. There we go. That can go in on the line it needs to go in on, which is that one. I'm going to put the spacer back in just to keep the line as straight as I can to start with. Up to that point there. Beyond that, it's going to have to curve, and I'm okay with that, but let's see. Do it like that. Is that going to be enough space across the bridge? No, not really. But I need that space there. Ooh, just don't have enough space to do what I want to do. So we'll just have to kind of throw it out the window a little bit and just push that all the way up to there. That'll do. Just means it's going to be slightly clunky getting into the station. There we go. Let's take that out. And that out. There we go. That's back to normal. It's where it should be. Over here, we don't need the spacer at all on this route because we're not putting a supply tower in, so that can come out completely now. Let's signal the rest of this section up. Ugh, I didn't realise it was going to be quite this complicated. Trying to get this line planned. Plonk that there, spin that around. Go. I got my positions over there, and do that like that. Ah, I see. It's not actually going to carry that across, is it? Okay, we'll just have to put a go on there as well. There we go. That covers that. Let's auto space this like that, and then over here we go to manually position these, and I want signals like that. And someone questioned why I was using a mixture of signals like this. The reason is the reason I'm doing these directionals is that these will act as a priority. Sometimes it's not so much of an issue coming out of a junction like this, but I usually use these at the beginning of a line to signify the direction of the line from that point on, which is why I tend to do them like that. Now, what I could also do, I'll put these stops in here so that it can let other stuff go through. What I can do is I can put a go signal there, and then in theory this line should prioritize over this line, because this is not a stop signal, this is just a directional. So the train should, in theory, as long as there's nothing blocking the line in front, should not recognize this as a stop signal, and the train should just keep going through. So from this point here, this train and this train, assuming they're both leaving at exactly the same time, the lower train here will have priority, because that's not a stop signal, so it'll just go straight through that, and while the other one will queue up here. I'm not too bothered about that for a little bit of freight like that, but that's why I kind of mix up my signals like that. It's a deliberate thing. Doesn't always work, and sometimes I have to tinker with them, but that is the general reasoning behind it. And because of the way the line is, I'm actually going to make that a priority signal. And no, that's not going to work. It's going to need to be this one that's going to need to be a priority. There we go. Just to keep traffic flowing through that way, and also to make sure that that gets the directional, because it didn't have it at the time. Let's try and level these up a bit. So again, it's about the halfway point. There we go. Space the rest of the line. Come around this way. Let's take... Actually, that works out pretty much spot on. Yeah, that works. And that has to stay neutral because it's just a single line. This is why we're not signalling just here, because there's only one line going in, and the trains can stack here if they need to. So all of that's done. We'll bring in a connection through into Middlesbrough as and when it's needed with the iron. Now we need to sort this bit out, so this is where it's going to get a bit messy again, because I've got this diverging of lines and converging of lines. So I want a go signal there, because I don't want a train to... the other reason I put these here as well, because I don't want a train to stop here at that signal and block the rest of the line behind it unless it's absolutely necessary. So again, it shouldn't recognise that as a stop, and as long as the line in front is is relatively clear, it should go straight through there. It won't always work, and it does sometimes need, as I say, a little bit of tinkering and bodging, but generally it works. It's not flawless. Let's get those stacked up in the same position, and over here as well, as close as we can. There we go. Goes all the way through to here. So where the next merging of lines is. Bring those up to about here. There we go. Try and keep these lines reasonably equally spaced. It doesn't need to be one of those. There we go. And now we can sort of, going off the lower line, because that's the one with the shortest radius. Now we can auto signal along here. Like that. To fill in those gaps. There's a gap there, which for some reason it didn't want to fill in. Not quite sure why. It's a little bit close actually, just there. Very long bend around there. It doesn't look right, so I'm going to bring these ones in a bit. Get rid of those signals. Like that. Still not convinced. I'm actually going to move those again ever so slightly. So about there. Like that. And that's where my supply tower is going to go. Just here. Like that. So now I can take out my spacer. Because that's no longer needed. And that train can then pick up supplies from there. Back to the signalling. Wow, this episode has just flown by. I've just realised we're almost out of time already. I can't believe that. That's insane. There we go, that's all spaced. Come through this way. That's all good. Do the diverging lines here. There we go. And then we can auto signal all the way around here. Like that. Let's just check for anything missing. Like that one, because it's plonked it over there. This is where the lines, when you ever get bridges like this, the signals always start to get a bit screwy. It's just one of those things. Everything there looks good. There's a little bit of an issue. Just a regular signal there. Take that one out. Alright. Our lines on this route are done. And we are pretty much out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to signal the rest of these lines, get rid of the passing, the spacing lines and stuff. And then next time out we'll get the trains up and running. We'll start moving some passengers and some freight. I'll also, off camera, I'll put in a freight connection between Leeds and Manchester as well. And next time out we'll start really shifting some goods and start building up these towns so that we can create a steel mill in Middlesbrough to run across to Newcastle. I suppose technically, I mean, Sheffield isn't here. Ideally, we would use Sheffield steel, but you know, Sheffield doesn't exist on this map, unfortunately. So we'll kind of base our steel mill in Middlesbrough instead, and we'll do all that with the running of goods and the prepping of trains next time out. So that's it from me. Thanks for watching. I am Jim Bob, and I'll be back with some more Railway Empire, Great Britain and Ireland Transport Revolution very soon.